Alright guys, and now we're gonna talk about forks in chess. So if you're playing a good opponent, the good player won't just give you free stuff. They're not gonna give up their queen when you attack it with a knight. They're going to recapture when you capture them, and they're gonna run away when you attack them. So the point of a fork, which is a tactic which we use in almost every game as a good chess player. So the point is to attack two pieces or pawns with one attacker. So when you do that, you leave them no choice but to give you something. They can't run away with both pieces at once. So let's see how that may work for you. First, we'll play b3. They'll play something like knight f6. We'll take out this bishop. They may play e6. And now that the queen and the bishop are not connected anymore, let's take off these knights because they're just getting in the way. And here's the first fork of the day. We say, queen, you're not looking at the bishop. I put two strawberries on one fork so that when the queen goes away, I always have something to eat. Whether it's a bishop, it could have been a rook and a queen on one fork. I don't care as long as I get two pieces on one fork, one attacker. It could be two pawns that I'm attacking. For example, let's put a bishop over here. And now let's set up a position like this. So there will be a king on b8, a rook on d8, and my knight said, oh, let me just attack the bishop and this pawn. And when the bishop says, that's all right, I'll just protect this pawn, well, no problem, because I was attacking the c6 pawn too, which leaves me with another fork on the king and the rook. So that means when the king runs away, I'll take the rook. I always like to say that I have a cat. Her name is Snowball. And when the cat takes something from my fork, I still have something to eat because she likes to eat everything that I do. So when she takes one of my strawberries, I can always take the other, right? And that's the whole point of a fork. Now, there are different types of forks. There's something called a family fork. Imagine I had a queen here, a black rook there. There is another black rook over here, and another knight. Actually, let's put a bishop over here, okay? And for white, all I need is a knight. If the knight can come here, then that's what we call a family fork. I'm attacking all those strawberries at the same time. Multiple strawberries, not just two, three or more. And that's what a family fork is, because I want to get enough food for the whole family. So everyone's happy at the end of the day. So I'm attacking the queen, and if the queen goes away, I can take this rook, I can think about this rook, and maybe, just maybe, I can even take the bishop, especially if the queen went somewhere like c8, then I'd probably take the bishop and say, thank you very much, right? That's the whole point of a fork, is to make sure we're taking something, and they can't save everything. It's a guarantee for us, right? I want to show you guys my favorite type of fork, which is the royal fork. So let me show you one example from the Sicilian defense. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, c3. And after black plays knight f6 attacking the pawn, we say, oh, you can go ahead, if you like pawn so much, you can take it, no problem. And the knight decides, why not, I'll take it. And now we have our first royal fork of the day, where we say, hi king, how you doing? And also, can I take your knight, by the way? And we are putting two strawberries on one fork. That's the whole point, right? I'm gonna show one more example of family forks and royal forks. Royal fork is because he's the king, he's the royalty, his majesty. That's why we call it the royal fork. Royal forks are great because the king cannot just choose to give himself up. He has to run away or block. And that's when we take something else that we are attacking. So for example, here is the Ruy Lopez opening, bishop b5. And now some people play knight f6. And after d3, black sometimes plays knight e7, this very strange move, which breaks the opening rule that we can only take out a piece once before we take out every single piece twice. And it looks like a really weird move. It's probably bad as well, but there is a trap behind it. So the trap is this: knight takes e5. White says, oh, give me more ice cream, I want more pawns, give it to me. And black says, no problem. Can I just ask you about where your bishop is going though? And when the bishop says, oh, maybe I'll get another fork, I'll play knight takes f7 and then I'll fork the rook and the queen. And black says, no, you won't, because I'll fork you first. And now it's a fork on the king and the knight. It's a royal fork because the king is involved. And when the king decides to block the check, then we can always take the knight. So that's the whole point of a fork, is to attack two things with one attacker, whether it's a queen, because the queen is great at it, or sometimes it's a knight that comes to b5, and then after some innocent move, knight takes c7, and we say, can I just fork your king and your rook, please? When the king has to run away from this royal fork, then I'll take your rook. Pawns are also good at doing forks. For example, let's say there is a knight over here, and for some unfortunate reason, the bishop decided to come to c4. I don't know why, I don't think it's very smart of the bishop, but he just chose to go to c4. Now let's make it roughly equal, so the material is roughly equal right now. Pawns are about the same, let's just make it completely equal. Now the pawns are the same. And there is one problem for white. That is the knight and the bishop are within forking distance of each other. They're one square apart, which is horrible. You don't want your pieces one square apart from each other. Here's why. Pawn to b5. And we say, thank you very much. I'll just put those two strawberries on one fork. And when the bishop decides to run away, I'll take the knight. And when the knight decides to run away, I'll take your bishop. And the knight gets clever and says, what if I attack your rook? Well, then we can always get the knight and the bishop. Once again, it's kind of a fork. This is more of a double attack because we're using two pieces, the rook and the bishop. Here, unfortunately, it doesn't work because he can take our bishop, but let's put the bishop to e8, and suddenly we're playing a double attack where we attack both pieces at the same time. When the bishop runs away, we will take the knight and say thank you. So you see, guys, even the pawns can do it. Sometimes I like to show that even kings can do forks. And a lot of my students don't believe me, so I show them this example. Let's say there is a bishop over here, and then there is a very brave king, because let's say there are no more rooks, it's just a few pieces left. Let's give white one more knight to make it fair. And this knight said, check, I will attack you, king, and I will checkmate you with a knight and a bishop. Unfortunately, this is not how you want your pieces to be. They're all loose, they're all hanging, and that's a very bad idea. And now the king will just come and say hi to both of them, and this is the final fork for black, because now they'll have to lose one of their minor pieces, either the knight or the bishop, and the king will take the one that doesn't run away. If the bishop runs, then I'll just take your knight. So guys, that's how you can do forks with even kings, but usually we say knights and queens are the best at it. Queens because they can see so far away, they can see a king on c8 and, for example, a pawn on g7, and they can look in multiple directions, which makes them better at doing forks. And knights because they're just so tricky, right? They can jump in all kinds of ways, so it's really hard to stop knight forks, especially when there are two of them. You really don't want to be facing these guys because they will jump around until they can find those two strawberries and put them on one fork. Now I want to show you guys a position from a real game so you know how it would look like, and not just any real game, but a world championship game. So the victim in this game was Mr. Karpov, who was playing black. And so the game started like this: d4, knight f6, queen's pawn opening, c4, e6, trying to take out this bishop, and now white took out the knight. This is called the Queen's Indian defense, when black decides to fianchetto the bishop or puts it on b7 or a6. For example, in this game, white says, I don't want your bishop bothering me with any checks, so I'm going to stop that. Black says, no problem, let me bother your queen then. And after queen c2, bishop b7, we are controlling this square for black. Now, white says, no problem, I'm just gonna play knight c3 and e4, and the whole center is mine, give it to me. And black says, well, I have to attack your center then. And white takes the whole center. Black captures one of the pawns, knight captures back, And knight controls the center. And white knight on d4 controls the center. The pawn on e4 is strong. c4 is strong. It's kind of a bind, right? It's hard for black to get out of this bind with d5. So he's gonna take another approach. He's gonna trade off this knight. Knight takes, bishop takes. And after bishop f4, this bishop's really annoying. So black said, let me just attack the bishop, make it go away, please. And when you go away, I'm just gonna take out this bishop to attack this nice diagonal. Look at all that scope for my bishop. It's a great bishop. But there are two things that make a piece great. How far it can see and how safe it is. The bishop can see far, that's true. But it's not really safe on d6 in front of the center pawn. You want to have the center pawn in front of the bishop. And because black didn't do that, he failed in this game. And he failed to see the fork that's coming up. Because there is a knight on h5 that's already unprotected. Knights of the rim are always dim. Their chances in life are very slim. And then there is this bishop, which is also loose. So as we say in chess, loose pieces drop off. And drop off to forks. Queen back to d1, saying thank you for one of your pieces. You can't defend both because I put them on the same fork. Now you'll have to lose one of those strawberries. When the bishop goes away, I'll take your knight. When the knight would go away, I'll take your bishop. And that's the whole point of a fork. So guys, hopefully you can use forks in your games. And remember, it's just one attacker attacking two victims.